Anthony Pettis versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Give us your thoughts on that fight.
Pettis, pretty easily, I gotta say. I think his past two title fights have been the most challenging on paper anyway, Melendez and Henderson, and he's made short work of them. He's just looked so good lately. He's well deserving to be at least in the top 5 of a pound for pound rankings list. I think he wins either first or second round by knockout or TKO.
Rafael Dos Anjos, a guy that's kind of floated under the radar a little bit, probably somebody that, you know, the casual fan isn't really going to know a whole lot about. But you look at it, man, he's brought it. He's picked up some key victories, and he's earned himself to get in his spot. But Anthony Pettis, to me, is really one of the world's best pound-for-pound fighter. He does, and Dana White has said it, and I actually completely agree with him on this. He does things that other people don't do. Anthony Pettis is something special. I mean, we think of him as a striker, obviously, so the Showtime kick, you know, all his flashy techniques, but his jiu-jitsu is ridiculous as well. So he's really, to me, the whole package. He's athletic. He's in his prime. I think Anthony Pettis is honestly one of the most exciting, most fun to watch fighters, and I think because of that, he's just going to be too much for Rafael Dos Anjos.
Yeah, this is going to be a great fight. And I think Dos Anjos is one of those guys you're watching the recent fights and you think he's a threat to Pettis. This is another one I take a step back, and I think Pettis is the man. He's knocking out people that don't get knocked out. He's submitting Bendo, who doesn't get submitted. You know, he's doing the unthinkable, and I think he's going to continue this role. I don't see it being an early stoppage, but I think Pettis getting his way, maybe waking his way off his back in the first couple rounds, but getting a TKO maybe the 4th or 5th round.
That's going to be a fun one. That should be very good. Anthony Pettis, you know, this guy does incredible stuff every time he's in the cage. Submits Gilbert Melendez, first person to ever do so. He's an amazing talent, and really the fight this should be is Pettis versus Nurmagomedov, but you know, obviously Khabib's still injured, could come back for that date, but you know, Dos Anjos, a very, very credible challenger. He's earned it, and he's looked amazing as late. He's one of those guys, it's kind of like the Fabricio Verdum thing. He came in, he was strictly a jiu-jitsu guy. He's been in the UFC since like 07, and you know, no one ever thought anything of this guy. He went on, win 3 there, then you lose to like a Clay Guida or something like that, and he just never found, you're just like, okay, this is just one of those guys. He's very serviceable. We can put him against whoever. But he just turned that corner all of a sudden. He said it was when he was moved to the United States, and he's looked brilliant ever since. His striking has come together in just such a beautiful way. But I don't know if he's going to be able to get the job done against Pettis. Pettis is too slick, too fast, and just too well-rounded at this point. I think it's probably going to be a mostly stand-up fight. I don't know if Rafael can even get him to the ground. Pettis has some really strong takedown defense, and even if he does go down, he gets back up pretty damn quick. So I think this is a Pettis fight. Almost, I don't want to call it a showcase fight because that's disrespectful to Rafael, but I like his speed, his power, and I think he's just going to be able to control the cage with his striking, and eventually he's going to end it with something special, because that's really the only way Anthony Pettis seems to win fights.
I think Anthony Pettis is keeping the 155 belt warm for when Conor McGregor decides to stop cutting down to 145. But can we not just talk about that instead? McGregor's already seen past it. He sees himself as the champion, wanting to go up to 155. McGregor versus Pettis is the one match that has to happen in the next 2 years. 2 of the most dynamic, exciting fighters in the UFC. I think Dos Anjos has been on a tear. Who would have known from his knockout of George Shadowopoulos so many years ago that this is what he was going to go on to achieve, especially when everyone thought George Shadowopoulos and guys like Evan Dunham were the next guys to take over 155. So really looking forward to seeing Dos Anjos go in against Pettis. I think in the hands and the wrestling, he could give Pettis trouble, but then I said that about Ben Henderson, and look what happened to him. Overall, Anthony Pettis' diverse striking arsenal is just going to be too much for Dos Anjos, and if he tries to take it down to the ground, I don't know. I fancy Anthony Pettis' chances of going another submission and get another promotion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's getting promoted faster than me. It's fucking disgusting.